Hello, everyone. Cheers. Kampai. This is my Tron cup from Tron Legacy 2010. That's a long time ago now. And you can see I've washed it and, cleaned the rim so many times it started to come off the decal or whatever. I'm drinking a little Coca-Cola tonight. Won't lie. Needed a little caffeine to get me going. I started a little early. It's 9:56 p.m. Come on, Jason. So I would like to play around with some of these buttons on the side. It's my Tron cup from Tron Legacy. Now you're hearing me because I didn't mute the YouTube video. Hold on. It's a long time ago now, and you can see I've washed it and cleaned the rim so many times. There we go. We got Mr. Ben Duncan in the house. Ben's the only one who came over early. I posted the links out on social media, Twitter. So if you want to come on Twitter and look at what's going on or be notified, there's two Twitters that I have. One is called Japan Jet. Excuse me. Bad part about go because you burp. Or is it Jet Japan? I don't know. I can't remember. Somebody look it up for me and leave a comment if. I think it's Japan Jet. So Japanjet. And the advantage of that Twitter feed is I almost never go to it and literally tweet on it, but everything I post on my Facebook page, my Argonauts Facebook page, gets tweeted on that Twitter feed. So you can kind of keep in touch with what's going on the Facebook page, especially if you're not on Facebook a lot, via Twitter, if that makes sense. And so every time I post a video, it actually gets posted to Japan Jet, for instance. I have all my YouTube stuff go there as well. But I also have my main Twitter, which is Taisha Jason, which is also my second channel on YouTube, Taisha, which is the word for a shrine in Japan. I used to live near Izumo, Taisha. And then my name, Jason. So Taisha Jason. And that's where I do tweet, things about movies and soccer and, whatever else is going on in my life, music lyrics and, the recent decision by the Supreme Court, to give marriage privileges to every living human being, whether you're gay, straight, or whatever. It's about time, America, but I'm proud that they finally did that. So yeah, there's those two Twitters. Then there's Facebook. My Argonauts on Facebook. I went there and I put the link, and I think it also goes out because I'm using Google Hangouts and YouTube and blah blah blah. It also goes out on Google Plus. So gosh golly, oh gee, I think I'm pretty well covered. I'm giving you kind of a different look tonight. This over here, I'll just kind of is that big poster I was talking about that came out of the Star Wars newspaper thing, talking about the new Star Wars movie in December. And it's like a size comparison chart. There's a famous castle, if you can see that, comparing its height to the height of some of the Starship vehicles, people. And then bottom is kind of like the Rancor beast in Jabba, and what's that? Maybe that big beast that they used in Phantom Menace to carry the force shields and stuff on Naboo. Just size chart kind of a thing, kind of fun. And my calendar up there is Beatles. That'll of course change on Wednesday. It'll be July 1st soon. And then this stuff over in the other corner, you've kind of seen a lot. That's Sumo calendar and DC poster. I need to get a new poster. If I go home this summer in September, I will definitely get a new poster. I could just switch some around, and so you guys at least have something different to look. Somebody asked me if that's a Godzilla cup, and it is, and now it's in front of it is my new Tony Stark Avengers 2 cup, although I haven't seen the movie yet. I did buy the cup last weekend when I went to see Mad Max. The movie comes out here in Japan this weekend, the 4th of July, actually. It doesn't mean anything in Japan, but it'll be a fun week. It's a fun weekend to see that movie, right? I don't know what the big movie in America is, 4th of July weekend. Usually that used to be a huge weekend, right? Independence Day and all that. So let me know what's coming up in the comments if you guys want to. I'll even type it here. What movie is opening July 4th weekend? Is it the new Mission Impossible movie? I don't know, it's so hard to say. The new Pixar movie, which has been getting good reviews, comes out in about late July, like July 21st. And then the new Terminator movie comes out here July 11th. So that's in about 2 weeks. And then the weekend of the 18th, 19th, or whatever that is in July is the weekend I go to Nagoya to go see live sumo. Now that weekend, Victor is not going to be around, so I won't be able to hook up with him. And Mully, who was on last week, I was telling him that I might just be hanging out, and he was kind enough to say that he will do his best for him and his wife to travel from where they live to Nagoya. And because it's a 3-day weekend for all Japanese people, everybody that lives in Japan, Monday's a holiday, and we can hang out on Saturday night, which would be fun because I don't have anything to do. I go see the sumo live on Sunday, and I'm going by myself. So it'll be fun to hang out with people. I was hoping just to hang out with Nagoya J-vloggers. There's so many of them now when you see Victor's videos, but I don't really know any of them. I've met Victor in person when I went to Nagoya a few years ago, but I've never met Tomoko or Kaz or Piggles or any of these people. So I was trying to get hold of them through Victor, but unfortunately, he's just so busy. He's been kind of, just not replying to emails and stuff. So that happens, I can't blame him. He's got a lot on his plate. He's going somewhere that weekend. I think he might even be going to America for all I know for the summer. But anyway, the new Bonsuke comes out tomorrow. Yes, it does. Stefan or Steven, or no, that wouldn't be Steven. Stefan. It does, and it'll be interesting to see. Bonsuke, for you that don't know, is the listing of sumo ranks and where people are, and it will determine, where people are fighting each other in matches. We know Teruno Fuji, the Fuji Terror, will be in Ozeki for the first time, and so I will get to see him in his debut tournament. Hopefully Kakuru will be back, so we'll have 3 Yokozuna. And sometime this week before the weekend, I will probably make my welcome to the July Basho. It's going to be coming up soon, so look for that. I can spread the word, Jason, if you wish. Okay, I don't know. What are we spreading the word about? Oh, about coming to watch the show right now, Robert? That'd be wonderful. Cheers. Thank you. If you want to tweet out stuff, that would be great. So I've got a main topic I want to get into, but I'm going to wait till about 10:10, so maybe some more people are here, because I would like to get live comments and feedback from you guys. So we got 10 people watching now, which is good. Darth is in the house. Hello, Darth. Ben, who's been here. Super Seinen. What did the art? Oh, who did the art for the Taisha Jason avatar? That's a good question. If you PM me on Facebook or maybe even on Twitter, Super Seinen, I can send you his name. He was doing it for a while. I don't know if he still does it. His name is Charles, and I met him through Twitter, and it was just an offer he was doing. He's a freelance comic book artist, and he said, if you send me a JPEG by email, I will draw your picture. And normally he charges like $20, but he was having some sale for some reason. He needed money, and he was doing them for like 10. And so I sent him a picture, and he sent that back, and I think it's fantastic work. Charles, it's either Dowd, D-O-W-D, or O'Dowd. So maybe look for that on Twitter, and if you don't find him via that method, I definitely probably have him in my friends list. I can figure it out. But yeah, he was cool. Oh, Robert, 1976 Canada, you're talking about meeting up in Nagoya. Okay, now I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I sent Victor an email that just said, "Hey, can you tell these people I'm coming to town?" I don't want to, it doesn't have to be a meetup, but I just would like to go out to dinner or go out to karaoke or go out and have drinks or, just meet them, say hello. I watch a lot of their videos. I know Rachel and June are in Nagoya, all these people. They probably don't know me because I'm not really that big a YouTuber anymore. But anyway, I mean, Tomoko knows who I am. I mean, we've chatted back and forth and stuff like that. But anyway, I just thought it would be fun if we could all go out. But I think Molly will be able to take care of it, Robert. But thank you. I think he'll be able to get in touch with a few people. It'd probably be better if it wasn't a huge group. So, g'day, huggers. Huggers number 2. Australia, sorry, my friend. You lost to Japan. The World Cup women's soccer has been going on. I've been watching every match, or as much as NHK will allow me to watch. So today I watched Japan-Australia. Japan won 1-0, and we'll be in the round of 4. And then I watched England-Canada. Canada's the host country. So it was a sold-out stadium. It was a good match. It was 2-1, but England prevailed. And so that will be Japan's next opponent on what will be Thursday morning at about 8 a.m. Japan time, but Wednesday evening for the rest of a lot of you. Japan will fight England, and the day before, Germany will fight America. So that's a long rivalry, and both teams have won multiple World Cups before. So that's almost like a final before the final. And then if Japan can beat Australia, which I believe they can, they will either fight Germany or America in the final match at the weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. I've got my Jaws shirt on here. Jaws just had its 40-year anniversary. And if you're in America, I think last week it showed on some big screens. Certain theaters had it playing to celebrate it being 40 years old. It came out in 1975. I was only 6 years old, so I didn't go see it on the big screen. I remember the ads for it and the music and everything. I remember seeing and hearing about it. My sister, who's about 5 years older than me, was like, "Mom and Dad, you cannot let Jason go see that movie. He will never go swimming in the, because we lived in California. They're like, he will never go swimming in the ocean again if you let him go see that movie." And I think that's true. When I finally did see it, on video years later, there would be times when I'd be alone swimming in our pool. We were fairly well off when I was a teenager. My dad had a very good job, and we had our own pool in the backyard. And you'd be out there and be like, "There's nobody around. What if a shark got through, the filter or something?" So yeah, I don't know if I could ever actually go scuba diving out in water with fishes. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, my younger brother, Paul, he went to South Africa for the World Cup. I don't even know when that was. When was that? A number of years ago now, whenever South Africa, you remember the Vuvuzela? And as part of being down there, he, one day they went off the coast of South Africa and he got in the cage, the shark cage, and was put in the water with the great whites. And I would just never, ever, you couldn't pay me enough money to do that. So anyway, oh, okay, Darth, yeah, man, PM me or something. Let me know what's going on. I'll also be around Sunday night after sumo in Nagoya. The sumo will finish around 6 p.m. and then it takes a little while to get out of the complex. And last year we jumped in a cab and went out for dinner. There was 4 of us last year, including Victor, who knows his way around Nagoya. See, I don't really know where anything is, etc. But I'll be back at my hotel probably by 7, and then need to eat dinner and stuff, and then I fly back to my area of Japan on Monday afternoon. So yeah, basically I've got Saturday night free and Sunday night free. So hopefully can hook up with some people and etc. Okay, well, let's jump into our topic. It's 10:10, and of course, as always, I want to try and get in and out. I'm going to turn on some aircon. It's not been very hot. June's been pretty mild. Like today, I really didn't have this on that much. I did some house cleaning, and it was a real lazy day for me because I watched the 2 soccer matches. But it hasn't been terribly hot. Like, you know, I had the windows open and the fans going to kind of, you know, give some fresh air into the apartment. And right now it's about 24 degrees C. So it's just sort of at that like level where it's like, it's a little warm. Let's turn on some air for, you know, maybe a half hour. It'll make a little bit of noise. I can't have my oscillating fan, in Japanese you say senpuki, going because it's in an outlet and I unplug it to plug in this extra light that shines on my face, which should make like shadows behind me. Oh, that's probably not the right angle. But yeah, so I don't have that going on. Okay, let's see how many people we got. Dun, 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 15 people. Well, that's not bad. I'm never going to have Hiko numbers. I think he's, you know, he's on that 1 hour later, and that helps a lot of people in America wake up and see him. And you know, Hiko's obviously, you know, way more popular than I am, so he's always going to have better numbers. But it'd be nice if, you know, get up to 50 one time watching me live. I know there's people that would try that are on the My Argonauts Facebook page, but you know, it's probably, they got to remember, and if they're in America, they got to get up, and then they got to see this right when they get up, like they're trying to eat their Cheerios or something. And you know, I mean, I understand. Okay, so my topic, and I wrote down some notes, and I was gonna maybe make a video about it, but I decided I'd talk about it here so I can get some feedback. So hopefully Huggers and Robert and Ben and Darth and EK Parmar, the Pookie Dance, will give some feedback as we go along, and the other people watching, feel free to chime in and leave a comment. You know, the World Cup, the Women's World Cup is happening in Canada, and it's happening all across Canada. Canada is a very large country, as I'm sure you know, and it has very, you know, Montreal and New Brunswick are very different than Edmonton and Vancouver, you know, on the other coast, et cetera, et cetera. And they tried to spread it out across the entire nation of Canada, and that was okay, but they got mixed results in filling the seats, especially for matches, you know, between, say, like Ecuador and, you know, France. Well, no, France has a kind of built-in Canadian following, doesn't it? I don't know, but anyway, you can understand what I mean, right? You know, today's match, Canada versus England, was sold out in the Vancouver Stadium, like 55,000 people. But the other match that happened, Japan-Australia, you know, maybe a third full, maybe 20,000 people. Anyway, and this got me to thinking about how Japan is going to be hosting the Summer Olympics in 2020. If you live in Japan, as I do, it's all that people talk about sometimes. It seems like there's constantly something coming up in the newspaper, on the news, you know, some aspect of the games are being talked about, whether it's relating to English education and how they want to hire more ALTs and get students speaking English more, and get people in general being able to better communicate in English while, you know, in time for the games, which, you know, are now like 5 years away. To, you know, there's been a lot of kerfuffle recently about the stadium, the big new national stadium that they're building in Tokyo, and how much it's going to cost, which is into the billions of yen, which is not quite the same as billions of dollars, because I think 1 billion yen is $100 million. So you've got to adjust your thinking especially if you're from the West. When you hear the word billions, you know, it sounds like so much. But anyway, Pixel Ape is here. Thank you very much for coming, Pixel. And I actually, when I was going through my brain and I was thinking about it, I'm very excited. Let me just say that from the outset. I've said many times, people ask me, Jason, how long do you want to stay living in Japan? I'm currently 45. My birthday is next week or a week after, and I'm about to be 46. And in 2019, I would turn 50 years old. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I've never been married. No previous things, dangling anywhere. So I'm unfettered, and I could easily stay living here, for the next 5 years and be here when the Olympics happen. And I think that would be very exciting. I think it will be a wonderful time to be here. There's going to be a bunch of stuff happening in 2019. We're hosting like the Rugby World Cup and stuff like that. And then I think there's a good chance Japan will get the next Women's World Cup that's going to come up for bid, which is going to be in like 2023 or something like that. But that's even further down the road. Anyway, and I was thinking, is Japan the best country to host an Olympics? So right from the outset, I'm going to say some negative things about Japan, but I want you to know that in my heart, and I'm hoping that some of these things can be addressed and maybe changed, and some of them are just indicative of where Japan is at as a modern country in 2015. And it's interesting in some ways that they got awarded this major sports event, and these are the reasons why, like if I were on the voting committee or something, I would argue against Japan. But I'm happy that they got the Olympics. Okay, we got that square. All right. So anyway, and Hiko actually, I think also kind of, last week when I was listening to him or a recent show, he was talking about some of the things that I'm going to touch on here. And, I think it's common concern. And I will caveat this with saying the Olympics are mostly going to be happening in Tokyo. And I don't live in Tokyo. I've never lived in Tokyo. I've only been to Tokyo a few times. So my knowledge of Tokyo is limited. So Hiko really knows more, of course, about this than I do. But he touched on the first thing on my list, which is it's so freaking hot. And I don't think they're going to change the dates to make it more, more accommodating. And Hiko was talking about the fact that, there's so many glass and concrete buildings. Hey, Fukushima Jack is in town, in the house, rather. Oh, Hiko's in here. Okay, hello, howdy. That, it's this heat island effect. There's not enough green, there's not enough natural things to absorb the heat, et cetera, et cetera. It bounces around, and it makes it even hotter than it would be, say, out in the Naka where I live. If it's 30 degrees in Tokyo, it might only be 25, 10 miles away because of that. So yeah, I think they're going to spread it out a little bit, but I mean, a lot of it's going to take place in Tokyo. Obviously, everybody will fly into Tokyo, all the travel. It's not going to be like some of it's in Tokyo, some of it's in Kyoto, some of it's in Kobe. Like when they do a World Cup and they kind of spread it around the country. It's mostly going to be at the hub of Tokyo. So the fact that it's hot isn't that big a deal. I mean, people know hot. I mean, people come from all over. I used to live in Dallas. I know hot. Okay. But the fact is, and I know if you've listened to anyone talk about Japan before, you've heard this before, is that the lack of air conditioning, the lack of wanting to turn on the air conditioning if it's available. The fact that there'll be places where, as a Westerner, you just can't conceive of them not having it, and there isn't any. You'll check into a very nice hotel, for instance, in the summer, and there'll be no air conditioning in the elevator or the hallways. There's no central air. So you'll walk out of your very nicely air-conditioned hotel room into a hallway that's like 30 degrees C, which is like 90-something Fahrenheit, and get in an elevator, and you'll be sweating by the time you get down to the lobby, And I went to the movies, I went and saw Mad Max last weekend, and the air conditioning was just barely on. Like you could tell, like it was set to like 25. And once you sit down and you acclimate and stuff to it, it's fine. It's not that bad, but it's going to be a shock for a lot of Westerners. They will certainly be unprepared for how little air conditioning there is. And I'm assuming at some of the venues, obviously a lot of the venues will be open air venues, so they're just going to be hot no matter what. But it is. That's one of the big culture shock things, I think, if you come to Japan in the summertime. Places where you would expect like to walk into a mall and open the door like in America and just have this wave of cold air from the air conditioning hit you, and it just doesn't happen. You know, they're very, very tight about it. Like at my university, I've talked about it many times. Doesn't matter really how hot it gets in June. They almost never turn on the air conditioning until July 1st. And so they only have to run it for about 1 month because we finish classes like, you know, July 28th or something. So that's one minus. If you come from a country that, you know, you're used to the heat, or it doesn't bother you so much, and of course, again, you know, it's not a dry heat. It's a humid, makes you sweat down to the, you know, bottom of your toes heat. It's just ugly, and you know, somebody like me, it's just, you know, I just sweat instantly. But you know, even if you're in shape like the athletes are and stuff, I think you'll be very surprised. All right, number 2 on my list. We've talked a little bit about this before. And I want to phrase this right because I don't want to offend anyone, but at the same time, I think you'll understand what I'm trying to say. Japanese people are extremely friendly, especially out here in the Inaka where there are so few foreigners. There's really only about 10 white guys, you know. I think we have 1 black ALT in my area, and you know, a handful of white women. Maybe 20 people that weren't born in Japan. And then, of course, you have your other minorities that we don't think about as Westerners too often, Chinese people and Korean people, Brazilian people, you know, Filipinos, that make up actually bigger chunks of the minority population in Japan. But, you know, seeing me, you know, I'm a big guy, you know, I'm 6 foot, I weigh, you know, over 300 pounds, you know, walking through your shopping mall is still kind of a, you know, a sort of turn and stare thing, you know. But people are incredibly friendly, and they don't always want to necessarily just come up to you and try to speak English with you and stuff. You know, there's also gaijin bubble where you'll sit and no one will sit next to you for fear of talking to them, etc. But I think the reason that this is a little bit bad, and we've talked about onsens refusing service to foreigners with tattoos, for instance. And why do they do that? They know they're not in the Yakuza. They're clearly from, you know, they're blonde-haired and blue-eyed from New Zealand or something, and they've got, you know, a surfing tattoo on or something. They're clearly not part of the Japanese mob. So why do they do this? And I think part of it is Japanese people are a little afraid of foreigners. They, especially out here where I live, they just don't have any experience dealing with them. They're just not sure what you're going to do. They're not sure how you're going to react to something. You know, what you might say if you are going to be able to speak Japanese, if you're not going to be able to speak Japanese. You know, they're a little bit afraid to interact with you. And I don't know how much that's true in Tokyo, where obviously there are way, way more foreigners than there are where I live. But I think in general, it's not that Japanese people are going to come up to you and want to bother foreigners, especially, you know, this is going to be the one time where the groups of foreigners are going to come in, and not all of them are going to speak English. You know, you're going to go up to people from Germany or from Italy or France or something, and they're going to be like, no, I don't speak, you know. You know, so sorry, it's doubling. Okay, I don't know what that means. I'm reading comments, sorry. So I think that's something to be addressed, that it's not necessarily that they're unfriendly when they get to know you or if they've had prior experience. There is a certain amount of xenophobia in the culture where they're just afraid of foreigners in general, because they just don't have any experience with people that are foreign. And that's changing, I think, a little bit. Now the JET program has come along. You know, kids have grown up with ALTs where they've at least know that they're humans, and you know, et cetera, and maybe they've had a foreign friend at college or something, but you know, the young people are way outnumbered here by the old people, and so that's something. All right, my third point, why Japan is not necessarily the best place to have the Olympics. When I was watching the Women's World Cup, okay, and there are matches between, like today, Canada played England. Well, there's a lot of English people that live in Canada. Obviously, they used to be part of England, right? They used to be, the Queen was on the stamp and everything like that. There's a lot of Japanese fans, Japanese Americans coming up from, say, Seattle and Washington and Oregon and even the Bay Area. American fans coming over the border. There's a lot of Chinese that live in Canada. There's obviously a huge French contingent. In other words, what I'm trying to say is Canada is a mix. There's people that have come from all over. There's obviously people that have lived in Canada for generations of their family. But it's an amalgam of people, just like America. So if you go to a game, you know, they need Canada people, quote unquote, to come and watch the games to sell tickets. But there's going to be a certain amount of Japanese fans or people that flew, you know, people that flew in, you know, to see the thing. That's kind of rare, obviously. I mean, you got to have money to be able to do that. And you don't know whether your team is going to win or lose in advance, et cetera, et cetera. But like I said, there's a certain amount of homegrown. I mean, when America plays Germany this week in their match, it'll probably be sold out. Because there'll be enough American fans that will come over the border to see it, or, you know, that live in Canada or you know, used to be American and now they're Canadian, or, you know, whatever. And then Canadians will want to go to support one side or the other. That doesn't exist in Japan. It just zero exists in Japan. And that's an interesting thing. They are going to have to almost 100% rely on Japanese people to be interested in this huge array of sports to sell tickets. It's an island, and 99% of the people that live on this island are Japanese. You know, so Japan teams and in athletes, and of course sports that Japan does well in, you know, swimming and gymnastics, this women's soccer, these types of things, just like when we watch the TV, ping pong, you know, things like that, you won't be able to get a ticket no matter what. And then there'll be other things where there's probably, especially if there's no Japanese person competing at all, where it'll be crickets. So it's going to be really tough, and there's no homegrown. Like, Hiko is a Kiwi, okay? Hiko's from New Zealand, and if the New Zealand has a great what's that, run, cross country, shooting, Nordic, you know what? No, that's a winter sport. I can't think of I'm just blanking on sports right now. But anyway, if they have a great team in some sport, you know, there might be 100 Kiwis in Tokyo that would go and support that moment. You know what I mean? There's certainly Kiwis dotted all around from the JET program, and maybe they would go to Tokyo to see something or whatever, you know, one time. But, you know, you're talking about a minuscule number, you know, of people from the UK or Ireland or South Africa, you know, Australia, these other places that send jets. Really, the only well-represented country is the United States, because we do have a lot of jets, and then we have obviously the military. So American things will get well supported. But I mean, other than, you know, countries that are close by where it's easy for people to fly in, Korea and China, Taiwan, you know, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of attendance they get at some of these events, what they're charging for tickets, and whether Japanese people will give a fuck, you know, and go. Now, Ponster, he's making cracks about sumo. Hey now, hey now. Yeah, sumo didn't get in. They published a list of the sports that made the cut. Like they took that list of 24 that I had that I talked about, and they whittled it down to 6, and sumo is not on it. So sumo will not be in the 2020 Olympics. Hella people travel for the Olympics though, Fukushima Jack. That's true. That's true. But what I'm saying is, when we had the Olympics in London in 2012 and we're about to have them in Rio, how many, London, you can get people from all over Europe, can get to London very easily, and all the different types of people that live in London, that live in Britain now. It's a very multicultural society, and Japan is not, so I'm just saying it'll be interesting, to have some of these games where there might be like 10 fans from the home country and everybody else is Japanese or something else. It's going to be strange. It's really, I can't think of many other countries where it's like that. I guess, I don't know. I don't know how multicultural like Beijing is now. They had the Olympics a few years ago. I can't imagine it's any different than Tokyo, really. But yeah, it's different. Especially if you're an American. American football, I don't think made it Pixelate. No. All right, another thing, number 4 on my list as we hit 10:30 here. Let's see how many people we got watching now. 22. All right, give it a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. Thanks for making some comments. Smoking, and I know they're going to take some measures to curb smoking. I mean, we heard all about in Beijing. There was something with like spitting or plastic bags or something that they had to really change the way people's attitudes toward it before the Olympics. And in Japan, I think it's going to be smoking. Americans, especially if you've never been to Japan before and you don't smoke, will be shocked, I think, at the number of places where you can smoke and where people do smoke. And at the venues, at the stadiums, are they going to have smoking areas? Are they just going to ban smoking altogether? Et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. A large population of men in Japan still smoke regularly. I think it's like 35%, which is a huge number when you compare it to a lot of other first world countries. Hello, everyone. Hello, Sean. Hello, Frederick. Yeah, over to vaping. So I just think people will be shocked. They'll go out to restaurants or they'll be in izakaya. They'll go out to a pub or karaoke or whatever it is, and people will be smoking. And like I said, at the venues itself. I don't know. I haven't been to a professional baseball game, for instance, here in Japan ever. So when you go to a pro ball game here, if any of you have been to one, do they allow smoking? Can you smoke in your seat? Do you have to walk up into the like mezzanine and then like go to a little area where there's ashtrays or a little room, et cetera, et cetera? I'd be interested to know. It is getting more restricted here in certain places, but it's certainly way more permissible than it is in, say, California, where I'm from. So I'd be interested to see how that changes in the next 5 years. They put up the tax on cigarettes here, but they're still incredibly cheap. With the exchange rate now, I think cigarettes are like $3.50 a pack, which is just really cheap, from what I've been told by people who smoke, where they're like $10 or $12 a pack in America. Hold Your Colors is here. Good. We have somebody representing Tokyo. Feel free to chime in and say things about Tokyo if I get it wrong. So yeah, I mean, I know like if you go to the local mall where I see my movies, there's little smoking rooms still. You'll go down like the hallway toward the bathrooms, for instance, and there'll be this little, you open the door and it's a little glass room with a thing, and it's got a smoking vending machine, and you can go stand in there and smoke. And theoretically it's not spilling out into the thing. But if you go into a restaurant in the mall, you know, maybe you can smoke, or maybe they'll have like half this side is smoking and this side is non-smoking, and then, you know, come on, you know, we've all been in there. Now I think there's a rule that's getting to be like, if you want to be a restaurant, like, you know, a Denny's, let's just say, in Japan, because one of the big popular restaurant chains here is like Joyful and Gusto, these kind of family restaurants that are a lot like Denny's. To have a smoking section now, it actually has to be like some kind of barrier between that and the rest of the restaurant. It can't just be, okay, the left side is smoking and the right side is smoking, and we'll put a barrier up, but, you know, there's no actual, like, it doesn't go all the way up to the top. Or, because I've been to McDonald's now where they have smoking, and it's literally now like a glassed off room. It's like you go into a separate, you know, you open the door and you go in to smoke, but you can still do it here. And anyway, but yeah, well, that's another thing. You know, we've been talking, Hiko's been talking about all these people bringing in medications. You certainly are not going to be having a lot of people, you don't have to worry here about people selling you drugs or anything. It just doesn't happen. I asked my college kids the other day, I'd seen a video on another channel about college life by Japanese people that went abroad. So they went to America or England or other places to study, Canada. And what were the parties like? What did they do there? What did they drink? Were there drugs? And one of the guys was so funny. He's like, yeah, we had a lot of weed. You know, he had studied in America. And what was that? You know, that white powder in lines that you would do? I don't remember what it was called. And I don't know if he was just bullshitting or it was pretty funny. And then I asked, you know, there's just no drugs at parties in Japan, at least in college. It's just not even something that's part of their lives. At least out here, especially out here. They're really hard to get. They'd probably be expensive. The kids here are incredibly cheap. So, but you know, they do start smoking. They can start smoking at 20. So they're not supposed to smoke when they're like freshmen or sophomores in college. But actually my university, in the 5 years I've worked there, has really clamped down on smoking. They used to allow people to smoke outdoors, and they would have ashtrays set up. And then now it's the campus is non-smoking, but you'll still see kids smoking in little corners and stuff because they don't want to have to walk out to their car, which is what people have to do now. And if you're a professor, it's funny, you can either smoke in your office with the door closed, and you're not supposed to let anybody else in or something if you're smoking. So not during your office hours, for instance, or you have to, like, you know, go off campus, which means, you know, go to a coffee shop, or a lot of the guys, I think the male professors, just go out to their car and sit there for 10 minutes and have a cigarette. So it's kind of weird. When it rains, I don't know what they do. Anyway, okay, so it's going to be hot. Japanese people have xenophobia, are afraid of foreigners. There's no homegrown fans for most countries, and smoking. The last two are easily fixable, so I'm not as worried about that. Number 5 on my list is ATM foreign bank cards. Japan is just a cash society. It just it is very different than America is now, and I don't know what it's like, say, in Europe, if you guys just swipe for everything. In America, people swipe for frickin' everything. You'll go into a gas station and want to buy, you know, a can of Coke for 65 cents, and, you know, they'll swipe for it. People just don't carry cash on them hardly at all anymore, and there's almost nowhere where you can't swipe. You know, maybe like a food truck or something. And so, you know, it's all about your ATM card. And here, it's almost nowhere do you do that. It's almost always cash, especially if, you know, if you're going out. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been out to like a big meal. You know, even at some place like Chili's or TGI Fridays or something in America, and 4 people get out their ATM card. And it's like, well, what is that going to do? You know, didn't any of you go get money and bring money? I mean, in Japan, at least everyone's prepared. Everyone has, you know, I mean, there's no stigma or no worry here about carrying, you know, $200 in your wallet at all times. I almost always have more than $100 on me. It's just because, you know, everything I pay for, I pay for in cash. And when I pay my bills, I go down to a convenience store and I give them cash, and they electronically say that I've paid my bills. When I get my groceries, I pay in cash. When I get gasoline, I pay in cash. Now, if I were a Japanese person, I could have credit cards, or I could have like a Shell gas card or something if I wanted to pay for some of these things other ways. But it really is a cash society, especially if you're a gaikokujin and you can't apply for some of these cards. And the thing is in Japan, most ATMs are open very limited hours. Now, Tokyo might be different. Very limited hours. They close at night. They close at the weekend. They close on holidays sometimes. And they don't accept any foreign cards. There's no universal ATMs except at, I think 7-Eleven. The 7-Eleven convenience store chain has a ATM that accepts like Visa, MasterCard or something. American Express is getting a little bit more accepted here. Because I know when I came here, when I was a jet, and I knew the thing about ATM, but I brought traveler's checks, and they were worthless. No place would take a traveler's check in Tokyo. I went to like 4 different places my first night to try and get some cash, and I ended up having to go to the bank the next day, and I just borrowed cash that night from some other person. So that's difficult because foreigners are not necessarily going to do their research before they travel here to go to the Olympics, and and they're going to try and get money, and it's going to be really hard if the current system stays the way it is. So they need to think about that and develop better ways that they can service foreign tourists who come over. We've had a huge upsurge in tourism in Japan recently because of the yen. It's so, like Hiko said one night, everything's on 20% sale because it's like 125 yen to the dollar or something. But a lot of these tourists are from Korea and China, and a lot of them literally come over for like a weekend just to shop. I mean, just to buy like super high-tech rice cookers and Japanese toilet seats and Louis Vuitton stuff, and things that you can get more readily in Tokyo than you can, I guess, in Korea or China perhaps. And there's all kinds of shops now. One of my former students works at one, where like in Osaka, for instance, she works at this shop, and if you're a foreign tourist with a passport, you can avoid paying the tax, the 8% sales tax. By showing some documents and filling out some forms, or you pay it and then you get it back when you leave or something. I don't know. But it's hard to get money. Post offices accept foreign cards. I know the post office has a good ATM system, Huggers. I didn't know that they accepted foreign cards. Citibank accept all major credit cards. Well, that's good. The problem with Citibank in Tokyo, and definitely the problem with the post office anywhere, is that they close. If you're out at night and you need some money to get on that last train or whatever, the post offices are definitely closed, and the ATMs are not always in some separate vestibule that's open 24 hours, and they don't open early in the morning sometimes. And Citibank, I'm assuming they have little offices. And like my local bank, that's my branch, has a separate vestibule with a sliding doors, and then the main bank, and so they can totally isolate that room, and it's got 3 ATMs in it, and yet it still closes at like 9 p.m. every night. The bank closes at like 5 p.m. but they don't leave it on, and it doesn't open super early, etc. So I don't know why, but that would be the problem. So that's another problem. Okay, I got 5 minutes. One more thing, the last thing on my list here, and thank you guys for listening to this. Europe, less and less cash used in Poland. Most people use debit cards. Yeah, I would assume that in a lot of places that's true. Hold Your Color says his biggest eye opener was how acceptable smoking in public places is. Um, he even went to a women's clinic or something, and somebody was smoking next to him. Um, Sorry you're late. That's okay. We're only got about 5 more minutes, but we're all going to jump over and chat with Hiko in a minute anyway. Foreign transaction fees, that's another thing that's true. You know, you can get killed with little $1 and $2 and $5 charges all over the place. Um, yeah, well, Tokyo does have a lot of people, that's true, but in 5 years, they're doing their best, Tokyo, to try and move people out of Tokyo. Like, I think Hiko's talked about this, and you know, to relocate them into other places. But it's not going to happen unless these big corporations, you know, open offices in other cities. All right, the last thing I was going to talk about, and this one I really don't know what it's like in Tokyo, so I should ask Hiko or some other people that live there. But if you're a handicapped person, it's very difficult in Japan. There are lots of, you know, famous sightseeing places where you have to climb stairs and lots of stairs, and there's no handrails, there's no elevators. It would be very difficult to get around if you had a hard time walking. Of course, if you're in a wheelchair, it would be nigh impossible. My university is very difficult. I think if you're, say, you know, somebody that walks with one of those sticks on your arm, and you're helped by that, or, you know, even somebody on crutches, when like a child, I call them a child, when one of the students breaks a limb, a foot or a leg, you know, and they have to get around on crutches, it's really hard on my campus. And I can't even imagine, you know, we have awesome buses and we have awesome trains, they're on time, but I wouldn't want to have to get on and off of them in a wheelchair. So I really don't know how they're going to address that in the next 5 years. Everywhere you go, there's little fucking bumps on the ground because, you know, a dogs and demons thing, and I'll talk more about this sometime, is that, boy, everywhere's got these braille accessible little, you know, bumps in the road so blind people can know where they're going. But I literally have, in the 5 years I've lived in my tiny town of about 15,000, 20,000 people where I live here now, I've seen one blind person one time out on a sidewalk by themselves. I mean, maybe they were, you know, there's blind people that are with other people. And she literally had the white cane out and everything. So, not that they shouldn't exist, but I'm saying that was like a construction thing that, like, I don't know what happened, probably when we had the World Cup here, you know, back, and they're like, oh my God, what are blind people going to do that watch soccer? And so everywhere you go, there's like blind stuff. There's a lot of braille if you go into elevators and stuff like that. Not all of them though, but the elevators are tiny sometimes. I mean, even I have a hard time getting in and out of elevators, and just because of my girth. Let alone fucking, you know, if you were in some kind of, you know, modestly sized wheelchair. And I mean, I used to live in the Bay Area, and people there that were handicapped got all around the city. I mean, and they would have, you know, the little joystick, and they would have a little motor on their wheelchair, and, you know, and they would work it, you know, and the buses were prepared for it, and the buildings and ramps. I mean, you don't see anything like that out here. It's really bad. I don't even know. I mean, so many of like the subways and train stations you go to, it's like, I don't even know if the platforms are accessible for a handicapped person. Like, you walk in and like, oh, your train's over on that side because this train coming goes north and you're going to go south. So you have to go upstairs over, you know, not a tunnel, what's that, a bridge, and then downstairs, and you'll be on that side of the platform. Okay, well, how do you do that if you're in a, you know, in a wheelchair? You know, I don't know. So I would be interested to know how they're going to address that in Tokyo. And, you know, not that that's a huge amount of their population, but I mean, isn't the Summer Olympics, isn't it part of it then built in? Isn't the Para-Olympics, you know, part of that? Don't they go in the same host city? So I just feel like that's one place where Japan really, and considering how many old people we have here, and people like, my mom and dad used to be, um, that, either need a cane or need a walker or something, need some assistance. It's just not a very handicap friendly country at all, in my opinion. There's not a lot of handicap bathrooms in a lot of places. Um, yeah, I don't know. So, okay. Well, that's about it. And again, after I said all that, I said those 6 reasons, we went down them. I am excited for the Olympics to be here. I think I will try to stay living in this country until that happens. I think it'll be an amazing year. I think the country is so ready for it, and we're ready to celebrate and show people how awesome Japan is, because for a lot of people, Japan is still very exotic and strange and far away. Um, but I think they have some things they got to change, and especially if you're Japanese and you've never been to another country, maybe you've been to Korea, a non-Asian country, you don't know how strange it is for everyone to be smoking, or for, no, not being able to use your ATM card everywhere. The trends of other countries don't necessarily hit Japan. Anyway, okay, so JR stations are super accessible, especially in the loop. So they're saying staff assisting people. So some of the people in the comments are saying that Japan, Tokyo rather, has better facilities. I don't know why I made that crack about. Sorry, blind people. Do I have any blind people that listen to my show? Okay, so they have ramps that they can move around and get people on and off trains. Okay, I would just think that, oh my God, that's going to slow us down by 2 minutes, and now we're not going to make our next train, blah 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 blah. And yeah, and I don't see a lot of special buses here and stuff like that. But again, I live out in such the rural area. Maybe somewhere like, Hiroshima or Kobe or Tokyo, where you can literally live off of the public transportation and not have to own a car or whatever. It's better for handicapped people. But especially when I've been sightseeing, I've been to shrines, and I've been to temples, and into even into museums and stuff. And I'm like, what if I were here with my dad? What if I wanted to show my dad around Japan? It would be impossible for him to get around this building. And this was back when he was like walking with a cane, but just couldn't really navigate stairs well, and really needed elevators to help him get, from floor to floor. And now he's in a wheelchair, and I would have to push him. And yeah, I just don't know. Not that, an ancient, 1,000-year-old shrine should change to accommodate, modern handicapped people necessarily. I can't climb Mount Everest. That doesn't mean they should put in a ramp. But at the same time, there should be some concessions made sometimes, especially in buildings and stuff. So yeah, but we'll see. Like I said, some of these can be changed, some of these can be accommodated. We're not gonna be able to change how hot it is and stuff, but we can change the way we think about aircon. We can change some of these attitudes, and I think, yeah, I think Japan will, as Sean Bro just said in the comments, I think they're going to have wonderful games. I think so too. I think we'll have a great opening ceremony and stuff. I fear attendance will be very low at some events because of what I mentioned about, no pockets of actual other people here to go support certain countries. And it'll be interesting to see the reaction. I'll be living here probably, but it'll be interesting to see like what Americans say on American media about Japan. Like, I remember when people got to Sochi in Russia, and all the media just went batshit crazy about like how bad the hotel rooms were, and blah 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 blah. And it turned out to be an okay games, but it really, they were just shocked. And of course that won't happen. I mean, we have A+ accommodations in Tokyo, and amazing restaurants, amazing shopping, all that kind of stuff. Not a worry. So anyway, okay, I'm going to get out of here. It's 10:55. Thank you so much for watching Argo on Air number 9. Thank you so much for thumbing up and coming by. 31 people watching now. Beautiful. Have a good week. Watch Nadeshiko Japan. We play England midweek. Whoa, that was a big mosquito. England midweek, and America plays Germany, and then the winners of those two fight for the championship. So if we win, we'll either play America or Germany for the championship, and that will be on Sunday, July 5th. But unfortunately, with the time difference here in Japan, it will be early Monday morning. But I'll be back actually, I guess, next Sunday to let you know what's going on, etc. with Argo on Air number 10. Okay, peace. Have a good week. See ya.